Barsham and Monahan's Looking at Movies define cinematography as the process of capturing moving images on a film or digital storage device. Cinematographers are tasked with utilizing various techniques that incorporate the angles, heights, and movements of the camera in order to convey the narrative and the underlying message. Two such film techniques that cinematographers implement in their films are familiar image and lighting. Familiar image is defined as any image that is periodically repeated throughout the duration of the film to help stabilize the narrative. The familiar image repetition can be used as a stabilizer within a single highly fragmented scene to help connect a complexity of narrative elements and imagery, as well as remind the audience of key ideas at play in the scene. Lighting is defined as the balance of illumination and darkness in a particular scene. Lighting is much more than just bright and darkness. It sets the foundation and is a key factor to shoot a successful film. It sets the mood and reflects the genre of a film. It allows viewers to have an understanding of how to feel emotionally. Through the usage of various lighting techniques, such as 3-point high-key and low-key lighting, cinematographers are able to develop the general atmosphere of character, scene, or film and convey messages to the audience. One such movie that relies heavily upon familiar image and the effects of lighting is The Night of the Hunter. The American Gothic, biblical tale of greed, innocence, seduction, sin, and corruption was adapted for the screen by famed author and writer James Agee in 1955. Although one of the greatest American films of all time, it was both ignored and misunderstood at the time of its release. The film tells the haughty story of religious fanatic, serial killer Reverend Harry Powell, played by Robert Meacham, who targets women that succumb to their sexuality, deeming them as the epitome of evil. In prison, he learns of $10,000 of stolen cash stashed with a man's family, and he schemes to retrieve it by any means necessary. The family, a mother and 2 kids, all face their own personal challenges as they drive to meet expectations of others and are all brought to their merit's end by the closing of the movie. The repetition of familiar images found through the film, however, the main incorporation of the technique is in the beginning and end of the film. Charles Lawton and Stanley Cortez, the cinematographer, utilized familiar image to show John's childlike innocence and uncertainty in the beginning scene of the film where John's father is being arrested for robbery. The shot starts with the audience being shown a camera angle capturing the back of the police car as it pulls into the driveway of Harper's house. The shots in action then subsequently follow as Ben Harper gets hit, taken down, and cuffed. The camera then shifts to John, reacting with a grimace as he clutches his gut and utters, don't, Dad." As the scene is unfolding, the shot duration is also becoming quite shorter, reflecting the urgency and anxiety that the audience and John are feeling in the moment. This scene is identically reproduced at the end of the movie when Reverend Harry Powell is being arrested for his ironically high number of crimes. Whilst the scene is unfolding, the audience is taken on a cyclic journey back to the beginning of the film when Ben Harper was arrested. The camera angle starts from the back of the police car as it's pulling into the driveway. The same shot pattern and duration unfolds as Powell is being arrested, and John's reaction remains consistent to his reaction of his dad being arrested as he clutches his gut and yells, don't. Needless to say, the awe of the moment comes with a puzzling thought as to why John reacted in the same distraught way to Powell being arrested as he did with his father. Cortez uses familiar image to display how John's memory and emotions of his father's arrest was brought back up when seeing Powell's. This repetition displays John's anger at his father's actions as they wiped their childhood innocence and replaced it with the greed and evil that surrounds money. Lighting techniques are also found quite evenly and methodically incorporated into the cinematic scheme of many scenes in The Night of the Hunter. Much of the story is told through symbolic lighting techniques, such as silhouettes and various angles of lighting. Many powerful tools of design and composition give The Night of the Hunter a unique and memorable mise-en-scène, but above all, lighting catches the viewer's attention and conveys certain emotions and associations for certain characters, such as the antagonist, Mr. Powell. For instance, silhouettes are commonly used to convey moments of fear to the movie's viewers. Silhouettes are incorporated several times during the night-long chase scene, in which Harry Powell relentlessly pursues the children down the bank of the river. Again, when he shows up on horseback outside the barn where John and Pearl are hiding. By reducing facial expressions or any other human characteristics of Harry Powell to a blackened figure, Mr. Powell takes on the appearance of a sinister monster climbing over the hill with no seeable emotions or sympathy. Contrastingly, a silhouette of Miss Cooper shows the fear that Harry Powell has for her and empowers Miss Cooper. By lighting Miss Cooper in the same way that the preacher has been lit, the viewer can compare the strength that the preacher has over the children to the strength that Miss Cooper has over the preacher. Similarly, lighting or lack thereof commonly conveys the danger and mysteriousness of Harry Powell. By lighting Harry harshly from above, his face usually has distinct shadows and gives the viewer a sense of that something is mysterious and deceiving about Mr. Powell, and that something might be missing from his humanity. In the scene where Mr. Powell explains his tattoos of love and hate to Pearl and John and their mother and grandparents, the phony preacher is lit from the right so that only half his face is illuminated and the other half is consumed in shadows. Mr. Powell tells the story of good, Miss Cooper and the children, versus evil, Harry Powell, and that love and hate wrestle with one another, but inevitably love conquers hate. Unlike Harry Powell, Miss Cooper is usually lit with softer light, which illuminates her whole face and sometimes gives the appearance of a halo over her head. The somewhat obvious effect of this type of lighting gives Miss Cooper a wholly honest look and association. By lighting her whole face, the viewer gets the feeling that she has nothing to hide, unlike the preacher, and the halo lighting makes the audience feel that she can be trusted. Stanley Cortez is an American cinematographer who has been recognized for his beautiful incorporation of lighting techniques within his films, demanding the praise of both the audience and esteemed figures in the film industry such as Orson Welles. His career was a roller coaster ride of success and failures, however. With much of his success coming in the middle of his career, Cortez did not enjoy much success during the last part of his career. Stanley Cortez often said that light was an incredible thing that can't be described, and that every day he learned something new about it. He further maintained that only two of the directors he's worked with understood it, Orson Welles and Charles Lawton. Another great movie captured by Cortez is The Magnificent Ambersons. This film embodies the presence of Cortez's masterful work with lighting and shadows. The imposing presence of darkness of the film's later scenes adds to the foreboding fatalism felt in George's life, and the manner in which shadows cut across the scenery and actors illustrate the fracturing of the family and the instability they have fallen into. All in all, The Night of the Hunter is a movie that utilizes and embodies everything that is impressive with the techniques of familiar image and lighting. Despite the lack of success this movie experiences with its mass audience, the critics recognize it as it truly is, a great American film.